Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And as the normal, we have a lot to do today. So, first, some of the great news. Our thermo aqua tuner has been able to take a break every once in a while because our coolant has is pretty much came down in temperature. I've adjusted a little bit, thinking that the goal might be 15C. And as you can see, this water down here has gotten down to be about 28C, which is also doing us the benefit of reducing the temperature of the oxygen. As you can see here, coming out at about 24, 25 degrees, and it's going in at about 60. So it's doing a great job cooling this down. Now, some of you probably have a question of why didn't we just cool the oxygen coming out of the Rodriguez? Well, that reason is pretty much just conservation. This way we only have to use one cooling system, and it cools both our water and our oxygen. So when we need to tap into this water for other things, it'll already be cool, and we're not spreading warm water throughout our base. So it's kind of like using one steam turbine and one thermo aqua tuner to do both. Now, we do have a little bit of time. This cool steam vent doesn't go off again for another 9.5 cycles. So I believe once this water is cool enough, it will be able to keep up with the cool steam vent as it's spewing out 100-degree steam and then dropping and condensing back into water. We will see. This is going to be the first full cycle that we've gone under. And right now the thermo aqua tuner is still going full bore, trying to get down to that 15C, which will eventually make this all of this water 15C. So all good in the hood there. Over on Cupola, not much has been going on. We've done a little bit of cleaning projects here. As you can see, there's still little filthy messes everywhere. We are waiting for one small item, and that is for Bubbles number 2. We really might need to rename her. Is waiting to become a mechatronics engineer. Right now, she is 3 skill points away. Once she is able to become a mechatronics engineer, then we'll be able to finish up this guy here, which is going to have, it's going to have an auto sweeper system of sorts to pick up some of the sulfur. As you can see, we've already got 21 tons of sulfur in this tile and 7 tons of sulfur in this tile. So this system's going to work at least for the meantime until we can figure out a more permanent cooling solution for our sulfur geyser. As you can see, it turns right back into a solid pretty quickly. Now this, 21 tons is still sitting at 88 degrees, but it'll eventually cool down as well. Now what we do to maintain that coolant, I do not know yet. We were thinking about using some sort of Weezwort system, which would be good because then we can collect the beautiful radiation coming off the Weezworts. Not sure where we're going to go that. But the name of the game today is on Butito. We're probably going to ignore Cupola for a little bit because there's a couple of things we need to do. This right now is our main runway. And by runway, I mean it's the ladder system for all of the dupes going all the way up here. They don't have much business to do up here, but they do occasionally go down. It's going to be in the way because we're going to turn this whole area here into our Galactic Greenhouse. Well, there was something in the way. Now, the devs have done a great job, and we're able to now deconstruct little things. I think I've gotten most of them. Oh, here we go. So here's an old locker, and we can just demolish it. Well, we should probably inspect it first. Nothing of interest. And then we just click demolish, and then old Meemaw is going to come by and demolish it. Unfortunately, they have not enabled this so far for the vending machines. So I had to reinstall the point of interest deconstruct mod, and it will allow us to deconstruct this. Someone will come by, deconstruct it, and then our area will be clean. So I think the first order of business is going to be reworking our ladder spine and the power spine. I think we're going to move everything over to this spine here. And this is where we're going to put all of our transport and our power delivery right here along this line. So let's get working on that, shall we? That is much better. we took the liberty, we added a few more large power transformers that went all the way up our spine, and we even put a couple here in the middle for future use, and fixed this up a little bit. So now we have our entire power spine, our ladder and movement spine coming all the way down here. And I know what some of you are thinking. Well, Echo, what about the decor? You know, your dupes are going to be riding that ladder, and the decor is horrible because of the heavy wire. Fear not. For the times that they are going up the ladder, they're also coming down the fire pole, and they're doing it rather quickly. But for the negative decor that they are going to get, eventually we're going to be using the plastic tubes, and so it's not going to be a very big issue anyways. Plus, we're going to be decoring our main base a lot, and that will also help. It is one of the disadvantages of putting your main power spine behind your ladder. Anytime they got to go up or down, they're going to be hit with that negative decor. But we will counteract it in the future. RNG has been kind to us today, and that's because it's trying to give us a Slickster larva. This is good for a couple of reasons. A, on Cupola, there's Slicksters. And where there's Slicksters, there's molten Slicksters, so they're producing oil and petroleum and all the good stuff, right? But over on Butito, there is no oil. There are no oil reservoirs, there are no Slicksters, but because we discovered the Slicksters on Cupola, the old printing pod has decided to give us one. Even better, which means we will now be able to get a source of oil naturally on Butito. So here's our beautiful little Slickster. Come on, buddy. Oh. How did you get out of my trap? Okay. So that was just a little graphical glitch. We put a couple of traps, that way the Slickster could be grabbed. And lucky for us, we've built this nice little home. Yes. So here's the deal. This is a perfectly 96 tile stable. The space heater here is to make sure the Slickster stays warm enough. Slicksters enjoy the heat. Okay, they are most comfortable in, I think it's 35 to 160, but the comfort range is 50 to 140. So we have an automation sensor onto this space heater that says, hey, when the ambient temperature is below 65, turn on. So we're not even paying the power cost 100% of the time. But look at this. Already producing oil for us. Way to go, buddy. Now, the key to doing Slicksters in a non-hot terrain is, again, keeping them warm. Otherwise, they'll turn into long hair Slicksters. And once this little baby is tame, I'll be able to show you more on those details. In the meantime, while we're waiting for our free oil, it's time to get working on this guy. The first thing is going to be to do is to remove all the ladder segments and build in a giant insulated box. This is going to take me a minute. Let me see what we come up with. Look at us. We've actually found a new dupe. Welcome to the colony, Lyra. Lyra comes to us with a farming of +10. Very nice. She also has mole hands, but doesn't like to build. That's going to be okay because you're going to spend most of your life inside of a greenhouse. Welcome again to Lyra. Lyra is a great addition to the colony, though, because now we're going to have 2 dedicated farmers in Guar and Lyra and a dedicated rancher in Frankie. So Frankie just got his most recent Critter Ranching 2 promotion. So we're really doing well on both of those fronts. Okay, there needs to be a full disclosure here. This is going to be 100% work in progress. We're not exactly sure how this is going to turn out, and we're going to make a lot of different modifications as the time goes. One thing is for certain, we are going to have the best greenhouse this side of at least Butito. So here's the idea. Some of the sections of crops are going to have to be in specific atmospheres. For instance, balm lilies only want chlorine, right? So we need to airlock each level of the greenhouse. Now, some of it will still be oxygen, and we might decide that some levels of the greenhouse don't actually need to be airlocked from other sides. So we might need to split up one level into 3 different areas. Not 100% sure yet, but just to be safe, we're going to start with some of the simple little airlocks here. We're going to probably use water to start, but that is also the great thing about our wonderful Slickster down here. Now, if you've never done any sort of Slickster ranching, they eat a lot of carbon dioxide. You can see here 20 kilos a cycle. In other words, we eventually will not have enough carbon dioxide, but hopefully by then we'll have plenty of good oil that we can use for things like liquid locks and coolants inside of some of our loops. So it's not a permanent solution, but it is just an easy way to get oil over here on Butita without messing with the heat that's on the cupola where the oil is. So we might do this for a little bit. If we need to, we can also burn some of our coal to create more carbon dioxide through our coal generators. And, you know, they also have the benefit of adding heat to the area, so it'll help these little slicksters grow. We have a few of these incubators here. We're not going to need too many. We only want to store 3 slicksters. 3 slicksters will be plenty, and if they get too out of control, they'll just eat all the carbon dioxide very quickly, and, you know, we won't have a nice sustainable or somewhat sustainable supply of crude oil. So we will let them work. In fact, I don't think we need 4 incubators. So the system right now has the incubators being filled with eggs on a priority of 5. What eggs are remaining go into our handy dandy omelet maker. As you can see, this is set on a priority of 3. Not too shabby. We will see. This Slickster did just grow up, so we can go over a little bit of how it works. As you can see here, if the body temperature of this Slickster is between 20 and 60, they're going to increase the chances they have at raising long-hair larva eggs. Long-hair larvas are pretty cool. If you want little decor boosters throughout your base, because long-hair Slicksters eat oxygen. On the other hand, moltens, if you get the temperature between 100 and 250, molten Slicksters produce petroleum instead of just crude oil. But that's a lot of heat to maintain. Right now, we've got it. We probably don't have it hot enough. The space heater right here is at 95 degrees. So it's 75 around here, 60s, and then 50s over here. So we need to probably crank this up to maybe 70 degrees. So as long as the temperature is below 70 degrees, the space heater comes on. Not a big deal. And in case you're wondering, we are still doing plenty good on power. Why does that say that's not connected to a circuit? That is obviously connected to a circuit. In order to get my energy readings, I must have to click on the heavy watt wire instead. Not connected to a circuit. That is incorrect. Alright, we'll just click on the large power transformer for now so you can kind of get a good idea. As you can see, we're producing 3.5 kilowatts, and we're only consuming, you know, right around 1.5 kilowatts to 2 kilowatts. We're still not even using half of our power. We got the hydrogen generator, which produces some power, so that steam turbine helps out, and then we have the solar panels. We'll eventually just keep adding more solar panels to make more power. It's the way they give you easy access to the solar panels without the fear of regolith right now. It really makes the solar panels sort of a one-stop shop. Now, the only difference is everything's not connected to a circuit. That is just not correct. It must be a little buggy. As long as you're in the same levels of power production. Now, when you need 20, 30 kilowatts of power, well, then you're going to have to figure something else out. But for right now, for what we're using, this is plenty. Even during the daytime, even during the nighttime, which you can see we're going down into. All right, so the solar power panels are not producing any sort of power. Our batteries are creeping down very slowly. And as you can see, it's daytime again. The solar panels are kicking back in, and our power availability is at 31 kilos on each battery. So you can see we have 200 kilos of power stored in our little energy tab. So we are doing just fine. You can even see it starts slowing. It gets as low as, what is this, 180s? Oh, now it's starting to go back up. Yeah, so we have plenty. It's going to take the dupes a while to do this. So I think we'll actually just collect some nice, beautiful B-roll while they do this. Looks like we're going to add another lucky dupe to the colony. Max is another great rancher, immune to food poisoning, and the only thing they can't do is doctor. We could use another rancher for our slicksters and our drecos, so let's go ahead and add Max. Welcome to the team, Max. All right, we have the general outline of our greenhouse. So you'll notice a couple of features that we've built in from the start, and that is the water locks that we'll be able to do. It looks like I missed a couple of insulated tiles there. And we won't need these to start. I mean, the first thing we're going to be growing is our grub fruit, and grub fruit grows fine in oxygen. So this is fine here. Another feature you'll notice is we left a gap over here. We may widen this by even one. The reason why we did is because this is going to be our heating and cooling area. Now, this is enough room for steam turbines. And what's going to happen is we're going to use a radiator method of cooling and steam, cooling and heating. Basically, what will happen is there'll be a couple of temperatures or thermosensors, and we will keep each level on its own in its own range of temperature. When it gets too hot, the cooling system will kick in. When it gets too cold, the heating system will kick in. That's the plan. We haven't exactly really designed that one yet, but in the future, that's what it'll look like. But first things first, let's get our grub fruit figured out and out of the main part of the base. Okay, the first thing we have to figure out is the spindly grub fruit plant, because it's much different than the actual grub fruit plant. So you can see the grub fruit plant produces 2,000 calorie grub fruits in 8 cycles. That gives us 250 calories per cycle. So it would take 4 spindly grub fruit plants, it'll take 4 grub fruit plants to sustain 1 dupe's food per cycle. But if you go over to the spindly grub fruit, it only produces 200 calories per cycle, which means it takes 5. And you know how I feel about that. I always grow 1 extra because typically the farmers don't get to it as soon as it's ready, which is wasting grow time. So when you're wasting that kind of grow time, you got to make sure that you account for the losses and everything. Now, eventually, we'll also have the cooking section up here. We'll have some fertilizer, but for right now, this is going to be all good. So right now, we're running 16 dupes. If they were instantly going to be grub fruit plants, then we knew we would need 4 to 5 grub fruit plants. But we're going to start with the spindly grub fruits, because that's just the way it works when you plant these seeds. So we're thinking maybe 6 per dupe. And at 6 per dupe on spindly grub fruit, we need 96 spindly grub fruit plants. I'm going to double check that math real quick because that is absolutely imperative we get this right. So once again, we have 200 calories per cycle, which means 5 spindly grub fruit plants per dupe. And then 6 times, let's say a maximum of 16 dupes in this colony is 96. So now we venture off to our greenhouse and we can count out 96. And you can see this is 95 right here. So 96 is probably go all the way out here. Perfect. So that leaves us 2 tiles in the front, maybe for a critter drop off. But now we have a lot of work to do in the form of farm tiles. Bingo. While they're working on that, we're also going to add a critter drop-off. And a storage bucket for sulfur. Sulfur because that's what the grub fruits take. Now, why the critter drop-off? Well, we're going to want to put some of these beautiful little sweetles in there. And the sweetles and maybe even some grubs because of the magic that they do to our plants. So once they get these finished, in fact, we can actually start throwing them in now, can't we? Let's add some. Where are you? Beautiful sweetle larvas. Grubs and grub wormlings. And then we'll select our sulfur here. Sulfur is under miscellaneous. Select it, we'll put it on a 4, and that's where all the sulfur will go. We have to keep an eye on it. Right now, we're still at 28 tons, so we have plenty. But we want to make sure that we don't run too low before we head over to Cupola and start grabbing that sulfur. Something else to keep in mind is whenever one of these grubs does the grub rub, it increases the growth speed by 50%, which basically reduces your need for the grub fruit plants by half. We're not entirely sure how long this grub rub lasts. It says 0.8 cycles, so they'd have to continuously do it, so it's not something you can rely on. But one thing you can say about the grubs, when they eat some of the sulfur, they produce mud. Now, the cool thing about the mud is that we can reuse that as well. Now, there's not a whole lot of sulfur sitting around here unless, I'm assuming, one of our dupes drops it. Because I don't believe they actually eat the spindly grubfruit plant. So I'm not sure if we actually want to put the grubs up there. Because they're going to throw off our math. They're also going to, increase how much sulfur we need. So I think we're not going to necessarily tend to them, but we might throw one up there just to see how its effects are. And somehow we got a grub way up here. Let's wrangle you, buddy. Also wrangle the sweetles. Sweetles are they are just similar. They sweetle tend, and they increase the growth rate of the plants as well. So we'll throw some of them in there as well. Oh, here's another one. And another one. 96 plants is a lot. All right, so they all have a place to go. We need to actually make sure this guy is turned off. All right, that should work well. And now we can go to planting grubfruit seeds. Now, this is still the original mutation. Eventually, we'll get into some other mutations, but for right now, let's just get our food supply going. One of the considerations that we needed to make is that this liquid sulfur geyser was going to produce us enough sulfur. When you do the math, it comes out to be about 1.7 kilos of sulfur per second indefinitely. That's taken into account the active periods and the eruption period. Basically, I can rely on 1.7 kilos of sulfur per second. We know that there's 600 seconds in every cycle, which basically turns out that we can rely on 1,057 kilos of sulfur every day. 96 spindly grubfruit plants, each requiring 10 kilos per cycle. So all of our plants require 960 kilos per cycle. So we actually have a surplus of about 100 kilos per cycle. So right now, we have infinitely sustainable spindly grubfruit plants. Yay us. Now it's time to get rid of all of these plants. We have got about 42,000 calories in the bank. We need to make sure that we have places for these folks to go. We didn't want to let any of our hydrogen go out, so we're going to do a little barrier here. But we don't want the farmers wasting their time on this place when they could be spending it in the greenhouse. So now all of our food will come from the greenhouse, hopefully. All right, our main base is now fixed a little bit. We've removed all these plants here, and that way we don't have farmers tending to two sets of crops. We're down to 20,000 kilos of calories here, but all of these are starting to come in now, and we're off to the races. But this is a long route to get down to the main base. And our main base isn't really serving any sort of function that we have to be in it. So I think what we're going to end up doing probably next episode is relocating a main portion of our base into this area here. It'll be the cots, the restrooms, and the Great Hall. And that way, to get to work, everybody's just going to have to go right over. And it'll be much better as far as commute time. Because as it stands, it's a long route to get back through here, especially for our kitchen. We're probably going to set up a nice separate kitchen here because we need to start looking at infinitely sustainable calories and food to where it doesn't go off. And right now, with the refrigeration, it doesn't quite do that. It still goes off a little bit. So we will look to do that next time. I hope you had fun. I know I did. I'm really looking forward to the remaining efforts that we make here in the beautiful greenhouse. Talk to you soon.